has been there for you during the most challenging times of our lives. As an artist collaboration, over the last year, Book of Hours has been there for you during the most challenging times of our lives. As an artist collaboration, we've given shape and depth to some of the most complicated topics of our time, making them easily accessible for those who seek to understand. We've given voice and space to the stories that often go ignored. Please take a moment to consider being a patron, make a donation, or join Rokfin. Thank you.
Lonely spire crawling on the floor. Lonely spire longing for love once more.
Hello. Yeah.
Here
It's
we
not a
are.
bookmark without some technical difficulties.
Hey guys.
Hey.
Thanks for joining today.
Yeah.
We're going to just check to make sure that we're streaming on Rokfin right now.
Yeah.
There's currently a person watching. Maybe it's us.
Yeah.
Let's go to the channel and just bear with us for 1 minute.
It says we're live.
Okay,
So,
there we are.
all right, cool.
Great. Thanks for joining, Rokfin.
Yeah.
And everybody else. Nice to see everyone. Let us know if you can hear us okay. If you can't hear us, please say so in the chat, and we'll fix the audio if we need to.
Yep. Okay, cool.
If you can do that. I'm Julie. This is my husband, JP. Thank you for joining us today.
As we said in the show notes, this is the meta show. So today we're talking about everything meta.
Right.
I was going to try to start out with a video, but I didn't. I decided against that. And so
What video?
Oh, the Bat Kid.
Oh, right.
So back in 2013,
Well, we should probably give it some context.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to do.
So this is regarding the Pfizer doing the ad that children are superheroes, where they hired all those child actors
mhm.
to portray superheroes in their recent ad that they did. You guys, I'm sure, have seen the ad. I know that UK Column shared it on their broadcast yesterday. I know that lots of YouTube channels have been criticizing the ad and have played it over and over again. So we don't feel it's necessary
Right.
to play the Pfizer ad right now.
And I'm sure you can go find it.
Right. So that's where we'll begin. That'll be
Yeah.
our first topic that
Sure.
we'll talk about today is
So the kids
children
are,
as superheroes.
right, and the reason that they're superheroes is because they've been cleared to get the shot.
Right.
And this is something that has affected both of us, but especially Julie. I think that you've been really, this is something that really hit hard for you. And we'll get into that in a little bit. But first, we're going to find out like how we got here. And the reason that we're calling this the meta show is because all the things that are taking place, the little things, you may not understand them at the beginning, but what they're leading up to is a bigger and broader idea of and telling you where you are, where you fit into this. You are all part of this, but it's this small thing that introduces an idea that then introduces another idea that then takes you into another place. And finally, we realize that this is going to affect us in a very big way across all aspects of our life. And that's why we're talking about this as being the meta show and talking about metaphor, the metaverse, whatever the case may be. So back in 2013, Julie and I were flummoxed by an event that took place. Like neither of us could figure out what the hell was going on and why it was taking place. Yeah. So this was in San Francisco. This, so a lot of you are aware of the Make-A-Wish Foundation, and they're another one of these foundations, these third sector nonprofit organizations that are responsible for a lot of just weird shit that takes place, or just they're responsible for the problems that we're experiencing right now, because they get together with corporations and with government, and you get these public-private partnerships. Yeah. Okay. So like the United Way, Make-A-Wish Foundation is hooked into a lot of corporations, and they have a lot of pull and a lot of influence now. So back in 2013, the Make-A-Wish Foundation announced that they were going to, well, they didn't even announce it. It was basically kind of thrown on us. This child, this little boy, he was about 5 years old. Do you remember his name?
Yeah, let me look it up.
Yeah.
Because I was just reading about him.
I meant to write it down. And so basically he was
Miles Scott.
Okay. Miles Scott. He had leukemia. He's apparently in remission now. Last time we checked, at least Wikipedia says so. And you can trust them. But basically, he was made into Bat Kid because he loved, during his treatments, he loved superheroes, and he wanted to be Batman. When Make-A-Wish Foundation asked him whatever he wanted to be, he says, "I would like to be Batman." So the story goes that he was taken into San Francisco. He lived in Northern California at the border of Oregon and California. So very high, northern, very up in the northern latitudes of California. Brought into San Francisco.
Can you guys let us know if you can hear us?
Yeah,
okay?
We don't see anybody on the
chat.
The chat, yeah.
Letting us know if you can hear us okay or not.
Okay.
You know.
So he thought he was going, this is what they said. They said that he thought he was just going in to get a Batman outfit, and his brother, most likely the scapegoat of the family, became Robin. And what happened in place of that was, he was fitted with a Batman outfit, all right, but he suddenly was now Bat Kid, and he was the sidekick to a lifelike Batman, a inventor and software engineer.
Thanks, Frida.
Thank you. Who was dressed as Batman, and basically they went around taking care of crimes. Like the Penguin had tied up the Giants baseball mascot, and there was another a woman who was the fill in the blank. I forget what they called her. The damsel in distress. She was tied up. What's with all the ropes? The bondage. Fuck. She was tied up.
Right. So
she was tied up on the tracks of a cable car rail.
Right.
All this shit. So they went around the city and they did all these heroic acts, and then it culminated at City Hall with he got the key to the city, and it was Bat Kid Day, and the Chronicle put out a special edition of the paper, and Bat Kid saves the city, and it's just like it was such bullshit.
It was over the top, and at the time, JP and I are like, why are they trying to make this cancer kid a superhero?
Right.
And who's paying for all this? Because they basically dedicated an entire day, shut down the city. 12,000 people came out to support this Bat Kid when he apparently saved the day, and then he was given keys to the city. Like, it was this over the top, extravagant PR marketing campaign,
Right.
and we were wondering who's behind it, what's going on, why is this a big deal? There's kids are in fighting cancer every day. Like, what is the story?
Right.
Why is this being done? Why is the mayor on board with this? Why is who benefits from this extravagant, over the top marketing campaign of making this child into a superhero, and what does it mean for the future?
Right. Now, the bill for this was $150 million.
Right. So who foots the bill? Who's paying $150 million? President Obama himself at the time retweeted Bat Kid and his saving the day in San Francisco.
Right.
Like, this wasn't just, let's throw a few people together and have a cake and balloons for this poor little kid. This was a $150 million marketing campaign where a nonprofit that's heavily funded called Make-A-Wish Foundation was part of this. And what was the point of this? Why would they need to put $150 million into this thing? Why did they need 12,000 people from the city of San Francisco to answer a rallying cry for
25 million or 25,000 or something?
No, I think it was like 12,000. They ended up getting 12,000.
Yeah,
and why did they have to pretend to and make it into this ridiculous story, like this meta story, like, oh, we're just gonna go have little Billy come to the city and get get his Batman costume, and oh my goodness, suddenly next thing you know, the president of the United States is involved.
He did a video tweet to him like after he received the keys to the city. So speaking of the president, let's back up a day or two or 6 months.
No, let's move forward 6 months.
But 6 months prior to this. Oh, no, you're right.
It's
6
afterwards.
months
so the
later.
whole point of this, the whole point of this $150 million campaign to turn this cancer-ridden child into a superhero was for what we're seeing today.
Right.
6 months after Miles Scott, the little Bat Kid with cancer, got the keys to the city and apparently saved the day, and $150 million of private donations and taxpayer money went into celebrating this child. 6 months after that, President Obama signs
the Kids First Research Act.
Right.
And
so this is okay.
So April 3rd, 2014. So 6 months later. And so the Bat Kid thing actually happened, like, what was it, like 7 years ago?
Right. It happened in around 2013,
okay, so
late 2013, early
November 15th, 2013. So we're coming up on the anniversary. So it's coming up on 14 years.
Right. So 7 years. What we're looking at is that this child was made a superhero and put into everybody's consciousness, so that when President Obama, 6 months after this marketing campaign took place and this giant celebration of this little boy who's fighting cancer took place, 6 months after that took place, President Obama signed something called the Kid First Research Act, which is money that is put into researching diseases for children, into researching diseases in pediatrics. Okay. This is why right now we're seeing Pfizer do this giant ad saying that kids are superheroes. This is why when I saw that ad, I'm like, why does it seem so familiar to me? Why have I seen something like this before? Because they tested it out in San Francisco already, which is why, once again, for the 687 millionth time since we've started this giant fraud that's been waged on, the global population, this is not a Chinese communist takeover. This is a San Francisco stakeholder capitalism psychological campaign. This is San Francisco is behind this thing. So they started this whole thing against children and researching, pediatric diseases. They started it when President Obama signed the first
Kids
First Research Act 6 months after this giant marketing campaign for this child to turn him into a superhero. All right, so let's fast forward to today.
Yeah. So just recently this year, Senator Tim Kaine, you remember him? The guy that was running with Hillary?
Right.
Yeah.
Senator Tim Kaine out of, what was it, Virginia? What is he, out of Virginia?
Yeah.
So first of all, Dawn says we're frozen. Is anybody else who's tuning in right now, are we frozen on your end? Or is it just Dawn? Just so that we know. Let me know if we're frozen. I'm looking on my end, and our video feed seems to be fine. So not frozen. Live Alive says we're not frozen.
Okay.
Sean says we're not frozen, so we're good.
Okay.
Good. So Dawn, maybe log out and log back in, and Dawn says it's okay now. So
okay. All right. And she's on Facebook. And I don't know who else,
So we have many people watching us from many different sources.
Right.
We're live streaming on Rokfin. We're live streaming on Twitter and YouTube. We're live streaming on 3 Facebook profiles. So I think that we're getting people from all different places. But so let's fast forward to today.
Okay.
All right.
So Senator Tim Kaine, he sponsors the update to the Kids First Research Act, which basically allows for more money to go into this. And I forget what else you were talking about with that.
All right. So the Kids First research is, again, it's money that's being put into the research of pediatric diseases. Now, you guys need to understand, the only way that you can put money into something and money into foundations is to create the need. And we've all heard the trope ad nauseum, you create the problem to come up with the solution and blah, blah, blah. Okay. So what we have is in April of this year, in April of 2021, Tim Kaine signed the Kids First
Well, he didn't
Act,
sign, he sponsored it.
He sponsored it, and it upgraded. So let's see. As of all right, so this bill directs certain penalties assessed by the Securities and Exchange Commission against pharmaceutical companies for specified violations to that fund. In making allocations from the fund, the NIH must prioritize pediatric research that does not duplicate existing research activities. That means they need to come up with new diseases in order to legally fund those new diseases. They can't continue to fund the previous research that they were doing under the Obama administration. Right. You get it? So all of this takes place within months of the 5 to 11-year-olds being approved for the Pfizer shot.
Right.
You see where, do you understand? Can you make those kinds of connections? I really hope that people
give
it.
Our audience some credit. I mean, a lot of people do make those connections, or they understand.
It's always about money and funding.
It's always about money and funding. And what we're dealing with right now is, the medical industrial complex. One of the things we noticed when we came to Pittsburgh was the huge footprint that the medical industry has in this city. It's phenomenal. And, I was always told, by several people, like, you're going to have to make sure you understand which insurance you want to choose because there's only two. Now, that's practically a monopoly. right? And and so it's just incredible. So they basically, they replace the steel industry with the medical industry. So that industry needs money and cash and infusions, and they need to keep the whole thing going, right? And so, like other things, like the poverty that we've discussed in our videos, where they're keeping people impoverished in order to financialize them to keep the thing going, right? They need to have the money going into the support services and the industries that support the people who are impoverished, so that they can keep making money and keep the whole thing rolling. They need to keep people poor in order to continue making money. And they're going to continue, they need to keep people sick in order to keep making money. And in this case, they realize that they have a huge demographic that's under 21, that's under 18, that's under 15, that they need to incorporate into this whole thing.
Into this money-making grift.
Right, exactly. And so this is an industry that is getting money from the government and from other sources as well, and coming back to, like say the Bat Kid thing, right? This was a campaign organized to get these things into your head, to get the idea that there are sick children and they need to be supported. But not only that, but this idea, and this is why we always come back to this, do not create heroes. Do not lift people up as heroes. What they were doing there is they were using that old trope of like, oh, he's so brave for going through all this. The cynic in me almost wants to say that this child did not have leukemia. I will stop short of saying that. I just said it, but I will stop short of pushing that idea, because I don't know.
Right.
And
okay.
But the whole point I guess I'm trying to make is that this whole thing was designed to get us to think about children going through horrific diseases, and that there's a way to fix them, because he went into remission before the whole Bat Kid thing happened. Okay. He was, and it says on the Make-A-Wish Foundation website, it's like his mom said, well, we wanted to make sure that he that he was strong enough to do this. Well, they also presented this as, it was almost as if it was a surprise.
Right.
But it wasn't a surprise to the parents. They knew what was going on.
Right.
Right.
Also, this entire story about Bat Kid, and I really encourage you to go look into it on your own. This entire story about Bat Kid took, people from all different areas and all different walks of life. There was the media, there was, an actual marketing agency involved. There was social media involved. And the underlying sort of philosophical driving force of this multi-million-dollar, over $100 million marketing campaign to support this child being a superhero, or the idea of this child being a superhero, was the philosophy of communitarianism, and this philosophy of community togetherness and working together. And these people who were involved, like the marketing campaign, the various other agencies that became involved in Bat Kid, any startup, any tech startup in San Francisco, any marketing agency in San Francisco, any clinic in San Francisco that mentioned Bat Kid, were given a social credit. They were given that social position,
that boost,
that social boost. This was all about, they even said 7.5 years ago, when this whole marketing campaign was unleashed on the citizens of San Francisco, they even said, this is your social responsibility to support this idea of this child being a superhero. And it was all in the interest of getting funding to do more pediatric research, which is code for experiments on children, and signing it into law, which is what Obama did, and it was then re-upped in April of 2021.
Right.
So
and
it's according to San Francisco, it's our social responsibility to continue experimenting on children.
Well, and there's two things I'd like to say to that is that this is a cynical attempt, or this is a cynical move to exploit collective action that people that people just naturally do. We do help each other and we do work well collectively, but only when it's not something that's coerced or pushed on us, sold to us through the media. Okay, that's when it's authentic. This is a very inauthentic bit of
it's corporate funded. It's a marketing campaign. It doesn't have anything to do with actual collective action.
Right. The second thing I want to say about this is there's a big similarity to this and the campaign that came up a few years later, and it was headed up by a child named Greta. Okay. So what was going on with Greta was a similar thing. She wasn't a child that needed, chemotherapy or a Make-A-Wish Foundation, but there was a huge marketing campaign and PR campaign behind Greta. And that tweet that first tweet that went out, and the photo of her sitting in front of her school with the sign, that was all planned. And the tweets that started picking up, you had politicians and business leaders and all these people like, I stand with Greta and all this crap. Okay. So this is a very similar parallel type of move that's going on. They have one playbook basically, and they just modify it here and there.
They just keep doing it over and over again.
So now
just changing the players.
And then finally, the third thing that I wasn't going to say, and we said it earlier, is that this is about lifting children up as heroes, as superheroes. So getting that into your mind. And now Pfizer with its ad campaign of, I'm glad these children have stepped up to be heroes to save us. And, and it's children's voices. So I'm imitating a child's voice. To save us. They're brave to do this, to go and get the vaccine, and they will save us all. Not the end. Usually that's when Julie says the end, and it's not the end, because what this is doing is this is creating a situation that now it's bringing forth even more of this, like, do your part to save each other.
Well, and then also what it's doing is let's go back to September 15th of 2015 when Obama signed the Behavioral Insights executive order, where the behavioral insights teams were to infiltrate every corner of our lives, no stone left unturned. What we have now is the behavioral insights teams are starting this campaign of children being superheroes because they're getting jabbed. Is now these children are walking around as if they're little deities with godlike complexes that they themselves have the power to save humanity by sticking out their arm and getting shot. This is mucking around with a person's
sense of self.
This is once again playing fealty to that narcissistic nature, which has basically overtaken every facet of corporate America. Like, you can't throw a stone in corporate America without hitting a pathological narcissist. And so now what they've done is they've gone into the minds and personalities of children who don't know any better, and creating little deities walking around with this, godlike image of themselves. We've already met them personally. There are some in our neighborhood that actually do believe that they have the power to save me and JP from an invisible pathogen.
Right, if they wear their mask.
If they wear their mask and get their vaccine, and their parents are supporting this idea. Their parents are creating more narcissistic pathological behavior, and this was the goal when Obama signed the executive order on September 15th of 2015, where he unleashed the behavioral insights teams into every aspect of our lives. People seem to think that you can just switch off CNN and that's good enough. That suddenly you'll wake up. Just turn off your TV, say the Amish. That is, that's not true. This, even the Amish say, I'll wear a mask if I'm in certain places. You know what I'm saying? Like, we were just in Amish country.
Right, yeah.
It's not, it's not what you think.
Right.
So this is not just a matter of turning off your TV. Like I said in one of my audios the other day, which I do audios, every other day, you could sit in a darkened room with no computer and no television and no outside influence at all, and you would still be affected. That's how deep the behavioral insights teams go, because they go into your mind, and it just switching off your TV or switching off CNN or Fox News is not enough.
Right. It's not just one source that's influencing you.
There are reports that are coming into your school districts where they are being told what to say. They're being told, they're following a script that's coming from a public health agency, and then the corporations are dictating to the public health agencies. So you have to follow the trail of breadcrumbs, and it always leads back to corporations, which is kind of what I want to talk about regarding OSHA and that thing. But I want to say that regarding this Pfizer campaign of children, first of all, they were actors. They're child actors for the Pfizer ad.
Right.
They probably didn't really get a shot. All right. The ones that you saw in the ad getting the shot, they probably didn't really get a shot. So this isn't our first rodeo with this. We watched the whole thing play out in 2013 with Bat Kid. And at the time we were kind of appalled and like, what is going on with this?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the exploitation of this child.
Why is this child literally being called a superhero?
Right, exactly.
And then it sprung up again 7 years later, just the other day with Pfizer. And I'm like, of course, San Francisco is behind it. Yeah, of course.
It's actually 8 years now, but still, that's So, but see, they always have a long lead time for these things, right?
Yeah, and they bank on Americans having short memories.
Yeah.
Short-term memories.
Right, exactly.
So, which a lot of us do.
Yeah.
But so this goes into this idea about corporations that are dictating to our regulatory bodies, right?
And they're doing it in a number of ways. Some of them are like doing it through public-private partnerships, like I mentioned. And, they're doing it also in the form of like through foundational work, or doing it through the form of like philanthropic work. Okay. Oh, I'm going to, the leader of corporation X, I'm going to make sure that, our city needs X, Y, and Z gets that through the foundation that I'm creating, or through the, the action that we're taking with the city government to blah, blah, blah. Right. And whatever that blah, blah, blah is going to basically fuck over the citizens of the city, put money in the pockets of the corporate entities, and line the pockets as well of the what are you doing?
Doesn't it go that way?
No, it goes this way.
Okay.
Yeah, like that. It's okay.
Okay.
Line the pockets of the politicians that support these things. And, we've done several videos, and one of them was the resilient cities.
Right. So Jeannie Sparks says in 2012, Obama repealed the Smith-Mundt Act, making it legal to propagandize the American people. I'm actually working on a video essay right now about that. I just did the voiceover for it, and I've been collecting the audios and videos to support in a creative way to support the video sketchbook about that. So what the Modernization Act of the Smith-Mundt Act was about, like you said, it is kind of like making it legal to propagandize to the American people. But in order to get to the point where he signed the September 15th executive order for behavioral insights, in order to get to that point, something had to be done with the Smith-Mundt Act, which was originally designed to keep the American people from knowing what our State Department was saying to other countries, especially during World War II. So literally, and the Cold War. So literally what happened was that the State Department told Congress it is against the law for Americans to know what we are saying to other countries about America. So maybe the conversations to other countries went something like this. We don't have any poor people in the United States. Everybody loves this war. All of the citizens of the United States love this war. They love World War II. They love the Cold War, whatever. And if Americans found out that the State Department was saying that to other countries, then Americans would say, wait, that's not true. Not all of us are rich. Some of us are actually very poor. And not all of us want the war. That's a lie. Why are you lying on our behalf to other countries? So that's what the Smith-Mundt Act was about, was to make it so that it would be illegal for Americans to know what the State Department was saying to other countries about us. So then the Smith-Mundt Modernization Act made it so that you could turn around and let me try to get this right. It is kind of like legal, making propaganda legal, but to make it so that so that the government could tell a lie, so that the government could have a lie, and then that lie is then presented to the media, and that the media is ordered to repeat that lie to the people. Is obligated to repeat that lie to the people. So it's kind of propaganda, I guess, but mostly yeah, so I'm doing this 20-minute or so video essay about it, and I finished doing the audio for it, or the recording. Now I'm going to finish finding the appropriate
images and
videos and music and things like that, which I'm about halfway there, and then I'll put the whole thing together and present it to you publicly, probably next week sometime. We've been kind of busy. It was my birthday, and then comes our anniversary, and then after that is Thanksgiving. So this is time of year we're always kind of busy with stuff, but you know, we'll get it done.
But thank you for bringing that up, because it is essential and part of this whole thing. And the Bat Kid incident is part of that, right? It's part of that propagandizing. And then in this case, through an actual, event that then brings about other changes and gets people thinking about other,
because you have to ask yourself, what is the point of lying to the American people? Like, what is the point of anything? The point of anything is to get an individual to agree to something. When I want something from him, like, I will say, here are the reasons why, here are some things that you should know. And then his response to me is, well, why are you telling me this? And then my response to him is, because I want something. So the American, the government and the various marketing firms and everything in place are telling you something. And so thanks for the happy belated birthday and anniversary. So the government is telling you something, and then your response has been, the government is lying. Well, but why? What's the point of telling you that there's a deadly pathogen? Is it just to tell you that there's a deadly pathogen? Like, you just have to, you have to say, this is about making money. This is about getting people on board to do something that is harmful to themselves in order for pharmaceutical companies and corporations to benefit.
Right.
So,
and it's always, like
a lot of people, not our audience, but a lot of people out there are like, they're lying. The end. And it's like, no, it's so much more than that. Like, why? Why?
And like we always say, it's always about money, and it always comes down.
Always,
to money. And basically, we are all being financialized through these means of, the invisible deadly pathogen that can be anywhere, and the one that allows you to sit down in the restaurant and eat, but doesn't allow you to walk through the restaurant without getting infected. Whoa! Sounds like a villain from the Bat Kid, right?
It's really it's a lot. None of this makes any sense, and it's not supposed to make sense,
right?
Because it's not a real virus. It's not a real health problem.
And these things are fed to us,
right?
Gradually in small doses, so that we, eventually, start taking it in, and we.
Right, Sean, help me, help you, help me, help you. It sounds like a Show Me. I was just gonna say, it sounds like a scene from Show Me the Money, which was Tom Cruise, Cuba Gooding Jr. Come on, tell me the movie. It's really funny movie. Really good. Lots of poignant Maybe it's called Show Me the Money. I don't know.
No, it isn't called. It's something else. But speaking of movies, we always go back to Wag the Dog.
Mhm.
Jerry Mathers. That was the beaver. Jerry something. Jerry.
Well, Jerry was the name of
the
Jerry
character.
Maguire.
Jerry Maguire. Yeah.
Right. So it was based on a true story, or ish.
Yeah. Right.
Loosely based on a true story, right?
Okay. So Wag the Dog, they made up a character to sell an idea. They literally made up a character, a person, a soldier didn't even exist, and they made him up.
They made him up
in order to sell an idea, to cover a problem.
There are lots of things being made up right now. You don't know how much is being made up,
and
that
a lot of times
people think is real, and it's not.
Right. And a lot of times it takes 8 years to figure it out.
Right.
Because I don't know how we got onto that today, the Bat Kid thing.
Well, the reason we started talking about Bat Kid was because Pfizer recently released.
Right. Oh, and we were talking this morning, and I was like, it reminds me of that Bat Kid thing.
Right. So Pfizer released.
Oh man.
Pfizer released the ad of the children dancing and singing about how they're superheroes, and it was super cute, and they're all child actors. And so when I first saw it the other day, my immediate reaction was, I've been down this road before. I've seen all this before. I've seen it through Bat Kid.
Yeah, right.
And that's why I'm like, okay, San Francisco is behind everything.
We started looking it up because it was only a San Francisco thing. It took place in San Francisco, and it was like,
so that was the trial balloon for the story. And because so many people came out to support it, and there was $100 million invested in it, and the investors saw a return on their investment when the Obama administration signed the Kids First Act, which is putting billions of dollars into pediatric research. That was the trial balloon. The San Francisco story of Bat Kid was the trial balloon for the nation and the globe, for Pfizer to say, if we put this money into this ad campaign turning kids into superheroes, we've already seen how well it worked with San Francisco with Bat Kid 7 years ago. So let's try it again, and we'll see an even better return on our investment.
And we've seen the superhero language used in with the adults too. I mean, last year we were seeing that a lot, that kind of bullshit.
Right.
And they're using it again, like in Pennsylvania, the marketing campaign for getting the shot is a similar kind of thing. It's like, do your part and save,
right. So it's basically you're a deity. You have a godlike strength by taking, a medical countermeasure or a medical intervention. And this is where the behavioral insights and psychological manipulation comes in. So but always the people that benefit the most are the corporations, and the corporations had already passed the thanks Amanda. So the corporations had already passed in-house but in-house rules through their onboarding, through their human resources. They had already informed employees all over that if the employees wanted to work in the offices, that the employees would have to be either vaccinated, and if they couldn't be vaccinated because of religious exemptions or whatever, then the employees would have to follow other steps in order to be allowed into the office. But those employees who work remote, and I'm talking about corporate employees who make more than $10 an hour, I'm talking about employees who have a certain technical field of expertise and work from home. So OSHA's recent announcement came as no surprise to us who keep our ear to the ground of what's happening in corporate America. Corporate America was putting the screws on OSHA, yet another regulatory body, to say, we've been doing this already. We've already told our employees that they can't come into the office unless they're vaccinated. Or if they can't be vaccinated, we've told them that if they want to come into the office, or they need to come into the office, then they have to follow these rules, which is that they need to have a negative PCR test. They need to download an app and answer various questions on the app that says, no, I don't have a fever today. And yes, I feel fine. And here's proof of my negative PCR test. and you can go in and do your work at your office, but you have to wear a mask. In fact, a lot of the corporations are making fully vaccinated people wear masks so that there's no delineation, no differentiation between the unvaxxed and the vaxxed, because corporations are operating on that philosophical ideology, again, called communitarianism, where everybody's equal. So the mask, what the mask does is it symbolizes that so-called equity or equality, that they're all working for Big Brother. They're all working for the corporation.
Right.
And most of the people in these positions that corporations and companies across the United States had already been telling their employees, most of those people are earning pretty good incomes. They make, some upwards of, the high 6 figures a year, and maybe not quite 6 figures a year, or 6 figures a year and above. Okay. So when OSHA came out with this announcement, I was like, whatever, because corporations had already been doing it, but everybody freaked out about OSHA.
Right. And so, and I want to address the comment that Amanda just made. She lives in Oakland, California. But first, I want to say 2 things. The one thing about, corporations is like, we're all equal. Yeah, we're all equal in the tier of the org chart. So whatever part of the org chart, you're equal within that tier of the org chart. The other thing that is that for, we always hear the narrative that corporations and companies are like, oh, we're being regulated to death. We can't operate. The opposite is actually true.
It's the opposite.
They are always looking to the government for the regulatory direction in order for them to justify what they do to the rest of us.
Right.
Okay. So,
So I would go so far as to even say that the corporations dictated to OSHA, and that OSHA felt the pressure and finally caved under the pressure of the corporations and made that announcement.
Well, they were caving to them last year in 2020 with the whole mask thing. It's like it went completely against all the OSHA regulations.
The OSHA regulations of health and safety.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So Amanda B says, I live in Oakland and work from home. However, I'm underpaid and without benefits. How am I supposed to get a medical exemption when I can't see a doctor because I'm not paid a living wage? Yeah. And I'm guessing that you might be a contractor, or you're not working a full 40 hours. So they sneak that in.
Right. To justify not having to give you benefits.
Exactly. Well, the other thing too is I would, what I want to say is that we address this kind of in our video Globotics, in that we will all eventually be, working at a station at home, and we'll be doing this through, like digital service platforms.
Right.
And that might be through your placement agency, or through, Fiverr or guru.com, or, whatever it might be. And so, and so what you're experiencing right now is the future, unfortunately.
Right.
And I understand your position.
So
greatly.
but the corporations and the companies have made it very clear. If you are working from home, you're working remotely, then none of this applies to you. You don't have to get a shot. You don't have to wear a mask. Obviously, you don't have to do a PCR test. You don't have to.
So for those of you who are working permanently from home, 100% from home, because what the companies are doing now is they're bringing people in little bits at a time, and they're also bringing people in. Wow, we just had a light change in here. They're having people come in like every other day, or and so they're spreading people out more, but they're making them wear masks, in the hallways at least. Sometimes they don't have to wear them at their desks, but anyway, so but the people who are working 100% from home are do not have to meet these standards. They don't have to get the vaccination. Now,
it's very clear in their language too. And also, and I'm thinking of this one corporation in particular, which is a very huge finance corporation. And we saw the language in their onboarding documentation, and we saw the language, with their human resource, because somebody asked us to look into it, and so we did. They literally said, they specifically said, if you come into the office and cannot get a vaccine because of a religious belief or a medical situation or a medical exemption, and they specifically use the term religious affiliation or religious belief or something like that, then we will accommodate you. Okay, so there's a lot of fear-mongering language going out. coming out right now, especially regarding this OSHA so-called mandate, which again, mandates aren't laws. So
Right. Yeah, and that's
you
what,
know.
something I was going to point out is this
It's
is a
like-
mandate
Right.
again, and
Well,
this
they don't
is
even
not
call
law.
in the OSHA language doesn't even call it a mandate. They call it a rule. And the first thing that came into my mind, because I am the consummate, I guess, rebellious anarchist, is rules are meant to be broken.
Mhm. Well, and something
You
else
know?
that somebody said a while ago that I heard, a podcaster, they were talking about. It might have been the Belgian psychologist who talks about totalitarianism.
Mm-hmm.
He was always talking. He talks about how
Desmet.
Yeah,
Matthias Desmet.
yeah.
Mhm.
He talks about how totalitarian states often only make rules; they don't make laws.
Exactly.
And so they will make rules that you have to follow,
And of course,
but they're not laws that are expected. That are required. Require you to do these things. But
and because this is a psychological warfare, and because this is a psychological campaign, as ordered by Obama on September 15th of 2015, when he signed the executive order, there will be chaos, there will be confusion, and there will be a lot of anxiety. That's what psychopaths do.
Right.
That's how they operate. They make everything confusing. They make you believe that a rule is a law. They make you believe that a mandate is a law, but then they turn around and say, "Oh, but it's your choice." And so pay attention to what your own company and what your own employer is actually saying, Amanda. Like, read what your employer is requiring of you. If they say, if you want to come into the office and you absolutely have to have a vaccine, no ifs, ands, or buts, and there's no exemption at all, then you have a problem. But a lot of these corporations know that they are not exempt from liability. They're not given immunity the way that the COVID shot makers
right.
are given immunity. So if your church is making you have a COVID shot to walk through the door, and you have an adverse event or a contraindication or a bad reaction to that COVID shot, then you could sue your church and you could own your church, or your employer. You could sue your employer. So a lot of employers know this. And so they're creating that language like, if you can't get a vaccine for a religious exemption, then, then you got to follow these other rules if you want to have
Right.
access to the office.
And that's what these bar and restaurant owners don't understand.
Right.
That are requiring vaccination, or these clubs.
Right.
They're being dictated to by especially the music venues, being dictated to by the large corporation promoters like Golden Voice and
Live Nation,
Live Nation
and Opus One Productions. That's another promoter here in Pittsburgh,
and in California, another planet in the Bay Area. Yeah. So
Ticketmaster.
So they are actually liable. So,
yeah, they are.
And so and something else that I'd like to also put out is that the religious exemption is actually covered under your constitutional,
your state's constitution,
well,
and
your state and the U.S.
federal,
constitution,
and the federal constitution.
So it's and you don't have to belong to a religion to have a religious exemption,
right?
Right. There's a made up religion, the Pastafarians, right? The spaghetti monster, right?
Right.
So, and the Church of the Subgenius, right?
Right.
So you don't have to, you don't have to necessarily be a religious person to say,
Yeah, it's not like you have to show your
card that says
right.
Buddha tells me that I'm part of this religion,
right? Or that you passed the what is it that when you do in
catechism,
like
or Catholic, like I had my, I was baptized and then I went through my confirmation.
Right, and I had
my confirmation card.
Right, I had a confirmation at the Presbyterian church I belonged to in San Francisco like years ago. That's not, you can't. It would be like asking a Jewish person to prove that they're Jewish by proving that they were not circumcised.
Right. Right.
You can't do that.
Right.
So
yeah, drop your drawers, boys.
So seriously, like a lot of people have forgotten some really basic, just logical basic things, and
Right.
they're everybody seems to be so wrapped up in anxiety or sadness or frustration or fear, especially fear, that they're forgetting just your really your basic like lifestyle choices. Nobody ever asks Jewish people if they're really Jewish to prove it.
Not lately. Not lately.
You know, especially Jewish men, right? So
Yeah,
come
exactly.
on, start thinking.
I'm sorry to hear that, Amanda.
She works with disabled adults teaching life skills, which is usually in person, but your clients prefer to have virtual sessions in the meantime. Yeah.
And the funny thing is to see, again, we're going to come back to this idea, this meta idea that, people are convinced through all touch points that they can't have personal interactions anymore,
right.
And that's only in certain places too. I mean, California is one of them. And
okay, Amanda, they can't do that.
Yeah,
Again, we're getting off into the weeds of this.
Yeah.
Amanda, they cannot request a letter from your clergyman and your rabbi.
Yeah.
Your rabbi is a square. I don't know what that means.
Well, just not. He's not with it, man.
He's not with it, man.
Yeah.
So
he's like a square.
Amanda, they can't do that. That is like, honestly,
yeah,
like this is ridiculous.
That's now that is treading into the territory of
why don't you just tell them,
right?
Do you want to see my proof of, like, just
you don't have to prove anything.
You don't have to do anything. Like, you could make it into a joke. They can't do this.
Yeah, they're not allowed.
And if they're threatening to fire you, then you have a lawsuit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. So my concern, though, is regarding what she said about working with disabled adults.
I'm more concerned about that.
So, I have a friend who was severely disabled. She had a form of scoliosis, and she didn't die from the so-called pathogen that doesn't exist, and she didn't die from her rare form of scoliosis. She died from the lockdown. She died from the medical countermeasure that she took within her body. And you know why she took the countermeasure? You know why she took it? Was because she wanted to go see her favorite band, because she wanted to go see the National, because she wanted to go to concerts. And that's why she's dead. She's dead because she wanted to go to concerts. And towards the end of her life, you know what actually killed her? Being abandoned and neglected. She was literally putting on Instagram and on Facebook, "You guys, I need help showering." The lockdown has made it so that my body doesn't work as well as it used to, because she had a form of scoliosis. So this idea that disabled people want to just be online is bullshit. Mm-hmm. The disability community has been thrown under the bus for so many decades and has been used and abused and exploited by foundations and pharmaceutical companies and hospitals. And at the end of this poor woman's life, my friend, at the end of her life, nobody came to help her. What kind of she didn't die because of germ theory. She didn't die because of COVID. She literally died because of neglect, being forced inside, and she couldn't even feed herself or wash herself. And that's what killed her. That's a Dickensian novel. That's poverty. That's like being abandoned by the very system that allegedly existed to bring her dignity and to bring her, into this equal place where she could live a life. Just 3 years ago, she was running around San Francisco going to shows with me. And now she's dead because she was abandoned. So when Amanda says that most of her clients want life skills taught online, that's
they've been convinced
of that. Yeah. They need actual interaction. The best, thing that you can do for a disabled person is to actually have like actual interaction with them, help them with their physical limitations physically, help them get dressed, help them with physical therapy, touch them, help them. Being abandoned and neglected and being forced into lockdown is what killed my friend, even though she did have a very aggressive form of scoliosis. She had 2 spines.
Yeah.
It was her. She was physically, like,
She was curled up.
She was curled up. She
Yeah.
was not, but she walked around. We would walk together.
Mhm.
She ran into JP in our neighborhood,
Yeah.
like when he would walk the dog. So back when we had a dog. So I'm just saying that there are lots of people that live really long, fulfilled lives who are really mangled and disabled and have, really aggressive forms of disabilities that would be horrifying to you if you saw them in person. But they do live long, productive lives. She died way too early, age what, 38?
Mhm.
I was,
Yeah.
12, 13 years older than her. So this is not right.
Mhm.
So this idea that the disabled people are thriving in lockdown or thriving online, that is not true.
Yeah.
And her Instagram page where she would go public and you would see her struggles is a testament to that.
Mhm.
That's a testament to
Right,
that.
right.
So,
Okay, I want to address two comments, and then I want to kind of change the conversation a little bit.
Mhm.
Juniper was talking about how she was asking about the policy for vaccinations, and there is none. Basically, there isn't. But they're going to still make her wear a mask and do all that stuff and take a test. Yes, that is standard, Juniper.
Mhm.
That's what's going on. They cannot make you get a vaccination, but they will mandate that you wear a mask and take a test if you have not had the vaccination, right?
Right.
Okay, so that's
find out what kind of a test it is. If it's a lower nostril test, there's a lower nasal test
Yeah,
too.
yeah.
That
And then Rebel Egg says Craft House in Baldwin, PA is a live music event that doesn't require. And so that's cool. Well, our little place around the corner, the Parkway Theater in McKees Rocks, does not either. And we were there last night. Not one person. Oh, there was one person in a mask, and
Just one.
It was weird to watch him like hold his beer.
He would like pull it down, bring it up, pull it down, bring it up.
Dumbass.
Like
You
he was
fucking dumbass.
you could see the internal struggle in him, So no, seriously, I thought it was hilarious.
So Jennifer says, yeah, and so that's what we were talking about. Like OSHA is putting this thing out, this mandate that all North American employees must be jabbed, or whatever. Yeah, exactly. And again, it doesn't for online workers or home, people working from home. This needs to be fought, obviously, but this is something that has to be addressed in another format or another forum. And there are some people out there. I mean, David Martin is working. The people in Ohio. Tenpenny and what's that other woman's name?
Pam Popper.
Pam Popper, and so there's a lot of people out there that are doing these things. You can check into what they're up to, and see how you can help. Right?
Juniper, if they want you to take a nasal swab, then there are lots of nasal swabs out there. So you need to find out which one, and you need to find out the one that's best for you, which is the least invasive. Mm-hmm. And then say, okay, fine, I'll take that one.
And speaking of nasal swabs,
if you want the job, I mean,
yeah. And yesterday I was riding by a venue that plays, live music.
Oh yeah,
and like a good place, like really, oh my, you're getting a call. and they had a what was it, a rapid test,
right? So they have a rapid antigen test. Okay, so first of all, this venue has been 9 years in the making, right? And they spent millions of dollars to renovate an old vaudevillian theater from the early 1900s.
Yeah, no, 1920s.
Or whatever, 1920s, in the neighborhood we live in. It's like within walking distance. It's probably like a 20-minute walk from our house. We could do it. We saw some really great shows there. Andrew Bird, Silver Sun Pickups, Psych Furs. It was great. But then when COVID hit, they shut down completely. And it's unfortunate because they spent millions of dollars to renovate this thing and were only open for a few months, and then they had to shut down. It was tragic. Yeah, it was so tragic and so devastating. So what they're doing, and they're having a hard time bringing in getting tickets sold for the various shows, because now that they're open, because they're a Live Nation venue and all the tickets are sold through Live Nation, and all the bands are through Live Nation. They're having trouble getting people to buy tickets. So they have tried to inspire people to come to the venue itself and say, hey, don't worry about bringing your, because you can either be vaccinated or you can have a negative PCR test. So they're like, just prove that you have a negative COVID result and we can let you in, or have your vaccination record.
Right.
Well, they're still having such a hard time getting people to come on board, or to buy tickets to go to the shows, that they've decided to do the rapid antigen test right on site for $39.99. It's become kind of like turning tricks. It really feels dirty.
Yeah.
And I'm like, so now the Rokfin Theater, which is the theater down the street from us, and all theaters throughout the whole country that are forcing their concert goers to do this, all of these are now like sorry, I'm
Wow,
so excited,
Julie.
my earrings are falling off. So now they are acting as if they are medical professionals. Is that it? So have you seen the kind of people that work at these venues? They're overworked, they're underpaid, they are working 3, 4, 5, 8 jobs. They're completely they're not at all the kind of people that you want sticking in a swab up your nose.
Let's
right?
put it this way: they're not medical professionals.
They're not medical professionals.
They're not even EMTs.
So this theater that's just down the street from us boldly announces on Facebook, hey, we're going to pretend to be medical professionals now and administer a medical intervention at our front doors. And all you have to do is for the low cost of $39.99. Like, this is ridiculous. This is so ridiculous. And not to mention that the rapid antigen test that they're saying that you can do right at the front door for $39.99 is known for its false positives.
Right.
So yeah,
the backing is somewhere. We'll find it after the show. But the other thing is going back to our concert reset video, where we talk about your financialization through going to a concert. Your experiences are taken away from you and they're financialized. This is another example of that. What if you don't the fact that there's so many false positives? What if that doesn't what if you come up negative or positive or whatever the fuck it is?
Right.
You've just spent $40
right
on a test for a show that you've already bought tickets for, and so, or if you haven't bought tickets for, you're still spending money to go see a show. And then if you come up positive, you can't go see the show. So you're out $40.
Right. So it doesn't
and
matter.
Somebody makes money
doesn't
from your misery.
Right. So it doesn't matter what you do. This ties into a larger philosophical discussion. All of the people that keep capitulating to these rules, and all of the people that keep running around in circles to please your authoritarian tyrants, you're only making it worse for yourself and for the rest of us. Like, just stop. Just get off this. So I want to talk about my brother in the swimming class.
Yeah. Okay.
My gosh.
Yeah.
I have this great story. Okay, so all right. Do you want to read what they're saying and talk about the earring, or do you want to talk about this?
I'm not reading any of that. I'm just waiting for you to tell the story.
Okay. So first of all, going back quite a few months ago, I started listening to Dr. Pilevsky and Dr. Northrup and various other doctors on this weekly program that they do. And it's one of the reasons why we were able to get Christiane Northrup to come and be on the show and interview her here on our show called Poll Quote, which we'll be bringing that up again. We'll be bringing it back. We have to compile. We have a longer list this time around. Now that we're a little bit more well known, we have a longer list of people that we want to bring on, and maybe we'll have some debates. Maybe we'll field some debates and things like that. But anyway, I started listening to these doctors, and Pilevsky, Dr. Lawrence Pilevsky, made a really good point at the very beginning of this whole thing, that we need to tap into our toddler self. Toddlers are, you can't really negotiate with a toddler. You can't really you can't really like reason with a toddler. Toddlers basically go, they just go, like they just like I want it, or no, or
Yeah.
and that's, we need to tap into our toddler self,
Right.
where when something is being done to us that is clearly bad for us, or we're not sure, or not enough,
Or we don't want it.
or we simply don't want it. It's okay not to want something. It's okay to say, I don't want it. I don't feel sick. I don't want it. No, the answer is no. Boss, mom, teacher, school district,
No.
cafe,
Right.
venue, fuck you. No, like we need to tap into our toddler self and just start acting really belligerent.
Right. And Poletsky is a pediatrician.
He's
so
a
that he
pediatrician.
knows what he's talking about.
Right. So he deals with toddlers all the time. Right. So I have a really funny story. So I have a brother. He is 7 years younger than me, but he's big, tall, strapping, handsome man. And he's an officer in the military. Like he's very strong and all that. And he's always been kind of big for his age, and he's always been kind of tall and strong and lanky for his age. Like he came out like a long string bean when he was born. He's just a really strong, tall kid. So when he was a tiny baby, my mom took him to swim lessons, and it was a terrible swim instructor. He took this tiny baby and he just dunked him under the water, and it traumatized my brother against water. So
to this day.
to this day, like my sister-in-law has a hysterical story about them being
Yeah, well, we can tell that another time.
No, it's kind of funny, and she tells it a lot. It's about they're on their honeymoon and they go to the Bahamas, and she grew up in Florida. She's a swimmer. She's an avid swimmer. Like, everything's, she knows all about swimming. So she swims out to the surf. It's the Bahamas, the water isn't that choppy. And she gets up, and I think she has a little snorkeling thing on whenever she gets up, and she can't find her brand new husband. And so she starts freaking out and panicking. You're like, oh my God, where's my husband? And, and everybody's like, oh my gosh, what does he look like? Where is he? Is he okay? Maybe he's over in the most shallow end of the water, like barely sticking his face in the water like this, and then getting up and going, and doing this. Like he's so afraid of the water. Okay. And it's because he was traumatized as a baby when the swim instructor like just dunked him without any warning.
Well, that's
a
fucked
terrible
up,
way to,
yeah.
to so anyway, when he was about 3 years old, my mom wanted to get him, not afraid of the water. We're Californians. It's like, come on, you can't be afraid of the water. So he's like 3, maybe 4 years old. And so he's a toddler. And he's in the back seat. She unbuckles the back seat, and all of a sudden, he goes limp. And she's like, come on, what's wrong with you? And I'm standing there watching this whole thing, and I think it's hilarious because he always makes me laugh. And he's like,
limp.
He's a limp dead weight, a limp dead noodle. And that's what we need to be. And she's struggling. She literally pulls him out of the car, and he falls down onto the parking lot like he's dead. And she's like, what is wrong with you? This is a passive aggressive move. And I know there's some like brilliant like Chinese,
whatever,
using your opponent's energy against them and all this,
like
but
Aikido, yeah.
From a 3-year-old perspective, though, it's like it's the only thing that would work. If he threw a temper tantrum, that wouldn't work. Mom would get mad if he throws a temper tantrum, so he's not going to throw a tantrum. If he pretends like he wants to go, well, that's no good because he doesn't really want to go. So he's like, what do I do? What do I do? So he just becomes complete dead weight. And he does absolutely nothing.
It's brilliant that a 4-year-old figures out how to go dead weight.
Yeah, 3 or 4 years old, and he
great.
Just goes completely dead weight. And my mom, and he knows he's big, and so my mother is
lanky,
and so my mother's really struggling to. She's dragging him across the parking lot. Meanwhile, I'm like, this is hilarious, watching this little kid just be dragged along. So he's not pushing against her. He's not like fighting her and pushing her away. He's just making his body completely dead weight. That's what toddlers do when they just when they are just like, nope, I'm not going to do it. They just become dead weight. And so that's what we need to be. We need to be dead weight. We need to make it really, really difficult for, for people to get what they want from us. If they want something from us, we need to just be like, go, like Frida says, yeah, just go limp and be like, I'd like to see you try.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead. I'd like to see you try. And that's kind of the attitude that JP and I take. I get a lot of pushback from my doctors who are like, you should take the COVID shot and we can go over all the benefits for you. I know that you might be scared. And you know what my response to them is? Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Can I go now? I'm done. Are we done?
Yeah.
I'm just dead weight. I don't fight back and say, no, this is a terrible thing. And all these doctors have said, and I know the truth and all this stuff. I don't do any of that.
It's like that emoji that's like has no mouth. It's just two eyes,
Yeah. So be like the toddler and go limp. I mean, that's something, be that dead, non-reactive.
How about never? Is never okay?
How about never?
Never's okay. Yeah, right. Okay.
That works for me.
So,
does that work for you?
Never works. Yeah.
So well, I love that story because it made me laugh so hard when it was happening, and it was so brilliant. And I think that's what Pilevsky, who is a pediatrician, was trying to get to that point. He was like, look, be the toddler,
right.
Find your toddler self, go back to it, and just
Zen
be like,
thing, right? It's like, no. Be the toddler.
Be the dead weight.
Be the dead weight.
Yeah.
Sit with that. Okay, so speaking of children and superheroes, well, not superheroes, but there's an old adage in show business: never be seen or on camera or be in the scene with children and or animals. That's an old W.C. Fields adage. So we've talked about children. Now we're going to talk about animals, and specifically the Beaglegate.
I know, right? What the hell?
Beaglegate. I thought it was Fidogate, and I looked that up, and it's actually something else. But Beaglegate is just stupid.
Yeah.
Okay, so Julie did an audio the other day about this whole thing with the idea that the animal testing has now created an issue, a conundrum, if you will, in your own moral perspective or your own sense of logic and how you put things together.
This is where it gets meta.
Yeah, so we're coming back to the meta world. So
it's hard.
It's hard because see here we've been presented with a conundrum, literally a conundrum, and so a lot of people have been saying, I don't support the vaccinations. I don't support animal testing. I don't support vivisection, which is animal testing. I don't personally, but I'm also not going to get a vaccine. And I don't believe that vaccines really are should be made in the first place.
Right.
I'm no longer have a moral conundrum. However, if you are like, well, I'm okay with vaccines. I'm against this one, but I'm also against animal testing. So media and the what are you calling them? The behavioral
insights.
The behavioral insights teams have put together a great new campaign for you. And that is that you now have a moral conundrum in that if you don't support animal testing, then what do you support? How about a little bit of, computer modeling? How about we just go right to human trials? Oh, I don't support that. Well, then you support computer. No, I don't. Well, then you're an anti-vaxxer. You see what's happening here?
Yeah.
So they're forcing you. You're forcing you into this moral conundrum.
Yeah.
So the whole Beaglegate, the whole thing about Fauci. Now, Fauci, this whole thing about throwing him under the bus is just bullshit. I mean, we don't hear from Bill Gates anymore. Why is that? Well, because his job has been done. Fauci's job is nearing completion. And he will be vilified in the media or not, maybe just a little, but he's going to go away. He will be untouched.
He'll be fine.
And he will be fine. He will never see jail time. But in the meantime, we're going to vilify him because he used some beagles.
He used
And I'm going to get into this in a second.
Beagles.
He used dogs, and they were puppies. Everybody loves puppies, right? Gotta hate that
I
Dr.
mean,
Fauci. I mean, this is a setup, man.
Were they beagles, you
Yeah,
guys?
well-
I mean, were they
well,
actually
it
beagles?
It doesn't really matter. The thing is with beagles is that Snoopy was a beagle, okay? But also, you know, beagles are a particular breed, right? Why are they using why are they using thoroughbreds or, you know, whatever?
Purebred dogs.
Purebred dogs for animal testing. That just doesn't make any sense, right? So this is all a setup. Beaglegate sounds good. Okay, we'll go with that. But the other thing, though, is, you know, it was this weird convoluted story about the puppies and sand worms or fleas or something eating the beagles alive, the puppies alive, and like, you know, and so you were talking about this dude that was on an interview, and he was going into all the details of like animal testing. I am against animal testing.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely 100%. I don't need to hear from this expert about that to convince me to think otherwise.
Right.
But I also am against, you know, this forced vaccination.
Or computer modeling our lives away.
Exactly.
You know?
So, you know, and so we just basically say, you know, and what Julie said in her audio was like, you know, we start from the position of this is not a real thing.
Right.
This doesn't exist.
Right.
So why do I need a vaccine to prevent it? And, you know, they even say the vaccines don't really prevent anything. So we're being lied to, we're being gaslighted, and now we're being used to fuck ourselves up, trip ourselves up with our own moral conundrums.
Right.
So
Exactly.
Beaglegate is just another form of gaslighting and fuckery
Mm-hmm.
to get you to stop thinking that, you know, you're on the moral side of you're on the right side of history, or you're a moral person, an individual.
So this idea of asymptomatic carrier, which is nothing but quackery. It's rainbow shooting out of your ass. It literally is nothing. Like you know, and people are taking it seriously, you know. So the asymptomatic carrier, according to the quacks out there, is that, you know,
I'm sorry, go on.
And you are a healthy human being with no symptoms whatsoever, but you could still be carrying a deadly pathogen. So you better either shelter in place, stop working, muzzle yourself, get a vaccine that doesn't work,
or all of those.
Do whatever you have to do, because even though you're healthy and you're not exhibiting any symptoms of a sickness, you still could be carrying a deadly pathogen. That's quackery. That's magical thinking. That's believing in something that doesn't exist. They need people on board to think that way so that they can use Neil Ferguson's model from Imperial College for everything.
Mm-hmm.
Remember, it was Neil Ferguson noodling around with a computer model that, you know, made the statement that we're all going to die of a deadly pathogen or something. And that's why we are where we are right now. They want to use that technique for everything. Guess what, JP? You have cancer. You have cancer because this computer model said so.
Wow.
Because I gamed it out on my little program here, and now you have cancer.
Whoa.
And you need to go into chemotherapy, which is going to destroy your bone marrow and destroy your life. You see? This is a profit-making scheme. This is a grift.
I don't feel anything.
But you have it because the
walking
computer
around.
modeling said so.
I'm okay.
That's what the whole asymptomatic carrier is about. Like you are supposed to be feeling something that isn't there or being something that isn't there so that they can justify going in and getting rid of the thing that doesn't exist. That's why we have to go back to the very beginning of this thing and go, how did it all start? Well, it started with some dude being paid by pharmaceutical companies and the Gates Foundation to muck around on a computer model. And basically, he's a computer nerd who loves to play games, and he created a scenario. And so our whole life is now going to exist on game theory. Like literally on a computer modeled out game theory, and our whole health institutions and our legal institutions and our nonprofits and the way we live our life and all industry is based on theory now instead of actual practical lived experiences. I know that's a what is it? A double
Oh.
lived experience.
Yeah,
is-
yeah,
it
yeah,
means
yeah. Yeah,
actual-
it's redundant.
Yeah, it's redundant.
Yeah.
So I get that. But our actual experiences and what's really true. So we're in this in a completely suspended time in our lives where everything is where logic has been completely suspended, and of course, made legal and ordered to be suspended by Barack Obama on September 15th, 2015, when he signed the executive order for the Behavioral Insights team to unleash into every aspect of our lives, including, allowing some computer nerd at Imperial College to game out a theory which would then affect all of our lives. Like this, people need to understand, why did they do that? Well, they did it so that they could use that concept for everything, especially in the health field, and especially the way that they practice healthcare forever.
Right. And somebody mentioned in the comments earlier about, they've turned the vaccine into a pill, but I think that whether it's a pill or a shot, Fauci, we've heard that Fauci, earlier in his career, his goal was to create injectable healthcare, and that's definitely where we're going.
That was his dream in the 1980s, and he tried it out on the gay community, and he has said repeatedly, injectable healthcare. What does that mean to you guys? That means that you don't need a doctor. You just get a shot. So what's going to happen is some tech bro is going to game out how you feel, and then they're going to give you a shot, whether you need it or not, whether it's true or not, or whether it helps you if you're feeling sick or not.
And they're going to say, well, you can't work unless you get a vaccine, blah, blah, blah. Right. So all these things they're kind of adding up, and they're all coming at you from different places. And so that's why we're, again, coming back to this is the meta show today, so we're talking about, how these things are all encompassing, and you're being hit at all places, and the metaphors that occur, like Julie said, the asymptomatic carrier. Now that is not a symptomatic carrier.
It's asymptomatic. Meaning you have no symptoms.
Right, you have no symptoms, but you're still sick. Now, how does that work? I don't know. But you're told that it does, and so you believe it, and you can go along with that.
Right. So I just like. So we begin from the position here on this platform that it's not real. That's something that was gamed out by a guy who was paid by pharmaceutical companies and paid by the Gates Foundation in order to game out a scenario. That's what it is. Well, and it's a computer game. Well, it's not a real virus.
And it goes back even further, Julie, because you remember there's that quote from 2015.
Right. So we need the
I know we don't have it in front of us.
I need my script in front of me. Right. So we need a
medical intervention or an injectable solution to a pan coronavirus. Get the media to support it. And once the investors are on board, you
see profit at the end of this process.
Right.
So we need to increase public understanding. Okay, here it is. We need to increase public understanding of the need for medical countermeasures, such as a pan-corona vaccine. A key driver is the media, and the economics will follow the hype. We need to use that hype to our advantage to get to the real issues. Investors will respond if they see profit at the end of the process.
And that's
nowhere in that statement from Peter Daszak of EcoHealth Alliance, nowhere in that statement does it talk about healthcare. Let me read it to you again. We need to increase public understanding of the need for medical countermeasures such as a pan-corona vaccine. So basically, the public needs to be told that they need a vaccine. That's what he's saying. That's what that first sentence means. You need to be told repeatedly that you need a countermeasure. You need to be told that. So Obama says, hey, no problem. Let's go ahead and unleash behavioral insights agents and psychological manipulation to make people understand that it's really something they need. But how are we going to do this? How are we going to do this? Oh, dear, Mr. Daszak, says Obama. Tell me, how are we going to do this? And he says, no problem, Obama. A key driver is the media. and the economics will follow the hype. So the media then creates the hype. Okay. And when you think of hype, what do you think of? Do you think of calm, rational, scientific dialogue? Or do you think of hysteria and anxiety making nonsensical chaos? That's what I think of when I think hype. Or I think of like a cheerleading squad at a football game. Hype, hype, hype. So we need a key driver is the media, and the economics will follow the hype. And then we need to use that hype to our advantage to get to the real issues. What are the real issues? What are the real issues? Oh no, what are the real issues? The real issues is that they're always trying to figure out a way to make more profit. Those are the real issues.
Mhm.
This has never been about health.
Right.
This is about making money. Investors will respond if they see profit at the end of the process. So what you're doing, what you're helping with is you're performing for investors to make money off of you to hurt yourself. You're participating in that performance. And that's what Peter Daszak of Eco Health Alliance was talking about. That is what this quote from 2015 is all about. And Obama was like, sounds good.
Well,
sounds good.
He wasn't president at that point, but
In September of 2015.
Oh, no, you're right. Obama was okay.
Obama
So
signed
my-
the
right.
executive order on September 15th of 2015.
Okay.
It's called it's a long one. It's called Behavioral Insights for the Personal Benefit of the American People, or something like that. It's
awesome.
It's
Right.
a long executive
and
order.
so we've been talking about nudging, and so
that was part of it.
nudging is part of that.
And
It
of course,
gets you,
Cass Sunstein with the CIA is behind nudging.
and he's now in the Biden administration, or at least as an advisory position. Okay. So we mentioned in the show notes a little bit about the metaverse. Okay. I'm not going to really go into the metaverse too much. I mean, we mentioned it
dumb.
because
It's not
right.
what
Well,
you think.
right. And so, the other day,
Oh.
Max Egan played a video, and I was going to try to find it, but then I thought, fuck it. It's a video of these Facebook executives having a meeting using avatars. And we've talked about this in Globotics. So go back and watch Globotics. It's free now. So go back and watch Globotics. And we talk about this avatars in a 3D like digital environment where you're at work talking to each other as an avatar. And so they're talking at a conference table. Oh, I wanted to be the robot. Oh, dude, you look good as the robot. Oh, hey, watch me do this. And they're like flipping around in space. And then they're like talking to somebody else who's out on the street and like, hey, look what I found. This 3D street art. And then they brought it up and it spun around and it was all this like, just it was all phantasmagoria, or what was the video you did recently? Spectacle. It's all spectacle.
Right.
And
it's a mockery. Metaverse. Everybody this is what I really don't understand about people. Like,
sorry, Julie.
people are really.
I'm sorry. I exist.
It's like
no.
people. Okay, so you learned that Facebook is now called Meta
or whatever.
and you're part of the metaverse,
Right.
and
Dude, that is so meta.
And people are like, oh my god, Facebook changed its name and I'm part of the metaverse. Oh my god. I'm like, first of all, they're making a mockery of you. They are literally mocking you by doing this because they know that you're going to react. They know that you're going to freak out because you freak out over every little thing. And half the shit you freak out about isn't even real. It hasn't. You know what's real? Poverty is real.
Mm-hmm.
My friend who was disabled having to put a message out on social media asking her friends to come and help her shower. That's what's real. The fact that we're headed into these, deplorable Dickensian times, that's what real. Meta, who the fuck cares? Whether it's called Meta, Beta, who cares?
Well, and so
you're using Facebook to your advantage to get your message out there or to share puppy dog videos. I really don't care.
Okay, so the thing
And
about
you
this
shouldn't
too,
either.
the thing about this too is that we have to always remember that when you see things like this, these are things that they want to have, not things that are going to happen. And
Yeah, it's
what
just
they're,
like
and what they're
speculation.
putting out there, and this stupid video has really nothing to do with it, but what they're trying to say is that, this is going to be Internet 2.0, and it's going to be all encompassing, and Facebook will be the center of the Internet 2.0. This is how you will connect. Look, what's his fuckface? What's his name? Zuckerberg. Fuckface Zuckerberg.
Early adopter of Facebook over here.
Yeah, well, whatever. I don't believe he's even the CEO. But anyway, he's been trying to get this to happen for years, and the way he was trying to do it was like in developing countries, or also known as third world countries. He was trying to make Facebook the point of entry for what, Juniper?
Well, Juniper put it so much more eloquently than I ever could.
You read it, and then I'll continue.
My thoughts exactly. I've been so busy in survival mode, and then I come back to Facebook, and I'm like, "What the fuck are these people going on with this meta bullshit?" I don't know why people are even talking about this.
Exactly.
Stupid horse shit.
So he's been trying to get this done for years. So going in and saying, basically, we'll give you poor people in these little countries that are developing stone age technology, we're going to bestow upon you the internet,
right? And
along with that, you will get the internet by way of Facebook. It will be your only way to enter the internet.
Right. So and then of course, what happened to those developing countries when this was introduced to them? They liked it at first, and then they realized they had to pay. There was some kind of remember when the payment was involved, and they were like, psh, and they tossed it, and they went back to living their lives.
Right, exactly. So Zuckerberg's wanted this for a long time, and this is nothing new. And so the metaverse is nothing more than fuckery, and it's more.
And they're mocking you.
Yeah.
It's a mockery, and I think that's what I hate about a lot of what's happening is that people in positions of power are mocking the rest of us. Like,
you will own nothing and be happy,
which isn't even
it's bullshit.
Like, it's just and they're just mocking you because they drop a line like, you own nothing and will be happy, and you turn it into an entire months worth of podcasting, and you freak out about it, and they're just laughing at you. Like, this is the stuff of fiction, right? If things were advanced as they want you to believe, we would have better roads. My friend would have had the care that she needed to survive and live in dignity, live a dignified life until the end. Right. And,
and all the talk about, well, we don't have the money to do that, and we don't have the money to do other things. And it's like, dude, we live in fiat currency. Our economy is based on fiat currency. That means they make up money. They just make money, and it's made to go to the top. Right. It's not even part of our world anymore, right? So it's made up shit.
Right.
So what anyway. We're trying to say is anyway, that was good. So what we're trying to say is be the toddler. And start looking at these things from a larger perspective. The metaverse is just meta. It's just bullshit.
It's not really real.
And what we are looking at is we're being attacked by all sides. And it's hard, believe me. I know it's hard because we're
being attacked psychologically.
Right. And through these programs like the psychological, what is it you call them? I forget. The psychological
behavioral insights teams.
Yeah, behavioral insights
Andrew.
teams.
Thanks a lot. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. The behavioral insights teams, it's all about nudging you into doing things or using psychological warfare to scare you, to anger you, to get you to do something to work against your best interests.
Right.
And that's what this is all about. And it's all, well, not only that, but to do those things in order for them to make money from your actions or from what you're doing. Right. And that's basically what it comes down to.
Yeah. That That is really what it comes down to.
I like that story.
But
So,
yeah, it's really frustrating, you guys, because I feel like I feel like my whole life has been an episode of Groundhog Day. It's like we went through this with the swine flu, and then we went through this with AIDS, and now we're going through it again. And some of the players and all of this are the same people. And it's like, how many,
right.
you keep doing the same thing over and over again
Mm-hmm.
and expecting a different result.
Well, and
like
Fauci is like a huge billionaire, and he's one of the biggest players, right?
So who's the crazy person in all this?
Right.
It's us for, continuing to live this, and then oh my gosh, we're shocked when bad shit happens. Right. It's like, well, we just saw this happen 40 years ago with the AIDS crisis and that fraud, and some of the same actors were involved, some of the same players were involved. History repeats itself every 80 years. I feel like a fucking 80-year-old because I've witnessed this now 3 times, the same exact playbook. How many more people do I have to watch die?
Right. Well, and I've seen financial, issues like not depressions but recessions, like many within my lifetime, to the point where it's like it's made it almost impossible for me to have the same kind of retirement my parents had.
Oh, you can't.
Right.
No.
So
the baby boom generation was the last generation that had it easy.
Well, we'll have a retirement, yeah.
Yeah.
And the rest of us, well, we won't have a retirement because they're going to take that away from us. That's great. Yeah. So the only way that I can think about finishing this up, and then we've got this weird fly floating around here, is to end with a song. But do you have any other thoughts or?
No. Some people have reached out to me personally regarding my tweet that went viral and got really surprisingly got retweeted, and it's become really popular. So yeah, I'm probably gonna have a dedicated show about that, to talk more about my personal experience, and during the 1976 swine flu. Oh, there's the back of my earring.
Okay,
look at that. You see, I don't like to talk about it. Let me just put it to you this way. My situation was really unique, and I had a really unique mother who was told that her 7-year-old daughter had just been diagnosed with this incredibly rare and aggressive disease that would probably kill me before I was like 15. Okay. So she only had, the family only had a few years with me, and that during that time, the hospital was going to do everything that they could to make me better. And actually it was just the opposite. So, and now that I'm the age I am, it took over 40 years for me to finally understand that the systems in place are not about making people healthy. They are about making people sick, because there's no profit in healthy people.
Right.
Simple economics.
Exactly.
There's no profit if you're dead, and there's no profit if you're healthy. So I'm sure that through my lifetime of treatments, infusions, surgeries, therapies, hospitalizations, various programs that I was involved in to help my body become as healthy as it could, have financed wings of hospitals, have given doctors,
Did they name one after you?
They financed foundations to do more research into pediatric diseases.
See, where did I hear that before?
That's why this thing is so, is hitting me so hard. Once I heard that the 5 to 11-year-olds were eligible for the Pfizer shot, something inside of me just broke and said, okay, I need to talk about this. So one simple tweet, got 2,500 retweets and thousands of views. So I need to dedicate,
we're gonna
some time
do a bookmark at least
to my
that.
story.
Yeah.
There's even pictures involved. There's some pictures involved, and there's a whole story. And one thing I will say is that, during most of my time in my childhood was spent in a hospital. It got to be so much that I was, in the hospital for so long that at one point when I was taken home, I was in the car and I was holding on to the door or holding on to something because it felt like I was on a roller coaster. That's how long it had been that since I had been outside. I was quarantined. I was kept away from my family. They had to come in hazmat suits at one point in my life to see me. Like there's a whole story, a whole decade of my life that is basically COVID. Is basically what you guys have witnessed through the media, like with the hazmat suits and quarantining and all this. It was like I felt like I had already gone through in my own childhood through Stanford Hospital what was experiencing at the beginning of COVID. So, but one thing I did notice is that very early on, thank goodness, my mother, she made it so that my hospital room didn't look like a hospital room. I watched a lot of death. I watched a lot of kids get brought into these treatment centers, and then they died. They would never go home. And one thing that my mom said from the very beginning is that is not going to be her fate. And so the hospital gave her a lot of freedom to do things like with my diet, make sure that I didn't have any sugar. She was really strict about what they put in my body. Of course, the infusions and the treatments, they were experimenting on me with, were causing all sorts of problems. But if she could control anything, she was at least going to control like what I ate and what I drank.
Right. Yeah.
And there was a certain point in my life where I was like on the way out, and I think it was at that point that she was like, okay, enough.
Yeah.
Like enough. So, and something else took over both of our personalities, and we were both just like, stop this.
No.
Yeah. So, which is why I'm here today.
Mm-hmm.
So when I started to see that the children were getting approval for these COVID shots, I was like, this isn't good. So I got to say something.
Right.
So,
and this was a precursor to the AIDS crisis 5-6 years later. And also my last thought on that, and again, we're going to do a dedicated show to this subject.
Yeah, and then someone else, a really popular person, I won't say who yet, actually reached out to me
to talk to her
and wants to talk to me.
Yeah, about that subject. But is that you're also seeing an increase in the credit industry. Okay, you're probably getting like things in the mail for credit card offers, for offers for car loans, personal loans, and the credit industry is growing in a huge way. Well, that is also tied in with all this, because a lot of us are not going to be available or be able to pay for our own medical issues that were brought about by the COVID, the countermeasures, and the whole COVID initiative. Okay, these were things that were done to us, and we're going to be financialized that way, and we're going to have to take out loans of some sort or another in order to pay them to fix us for the thing they made us sick with.
Because it's not going to be like when I was younger. When I was younger, they had the Jerry Lewis Telethon. Remember that? Every year? It was always around.
Yeah.
When was it?
That was for MS. Yeah,
well,
that was always around. It was on Labor Day.
It was always around Labor Day, and even though I don't have MS, the autoimmune illness that they diagnosed me with made it possible so that those foundations and those fundraisers would pay for my treatment. So, wow, yeah. So
be careful with credit. That's all I have to say.
Yeah,
I'm not going to tell you what to do, but just be careful.
Yeah. So they don't have those foundations and those fundraisers anymore. I mean, they have GoFundMe,
right?
But these foundations and fundraisers that are supported by famous people and hospitals have, like, foundations and funding, like within the hospital infrastructure. Millions of dollars was spent on my so-called care, which really was experimentation.
Good.
And my parents didn't have to pay for any of it. So nowadays, that's not
going to be the case.
Not the case.
No. So it's, and that's also going to be tied with lifelong learning. So all these things that we've been talking about in our videos, these are all things that are coming together in the metaverse, right? So you're going to have to get credit to pay for your health. You're going to have to get credit to continue learning so that you can get that job that you've already have, that you have to now compete with other people for. And you're going to have to take out money so that you can learn the skill sets that you need for that, modified job that you've been doing. So this is going to be our life. So we want to make you aware of that this is the metaverse. It's not, Facebook.
Yeah.
Okay. Changing its name.
Right.
Okay. So again, I guess the way to go out is with a song. So
yeah.
I will see you next time, Julie.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody out there, thank you for coming and watching and talking to us on chat.
Yeah. Sign up to subscribe to our YouTube channel and to Rokfin. We have some really great video essays and video sketchbooks that we've done. Look out for the one that I'm working on right now. I'm not sure what I'm going to call it, but it's kind of about propaganda. It's it's basically a longer conversation about the Smith-Mundt Act and then its modernization. And then, of course, the executive order that Obama signed in September of 2015, which was the infiltration of behavioral insights into every aspect of our lives. So it's all about that. And so hopefully that'll be done sometime next week. So
cool.
We're still working on stuff. We're still doing it. Become a patron, support our work,
and share
our stuff if you can.
Yeah.
And we will have we're working on a list of people that we want to invite on for our interview. Our interview session on our platform is called Poll Quote. So this is where we get people like Christiane Northrup and Vanessa Beeley and John Stepling and Hiroki Hamada, which are names, if you're not familiar, go check them out and go follow them. And even our friend Rebel Egg was on our show, right. A local friend of ours. So, we're going to be bringing in some more local people and local voices that are more down to earth. And then we're going to be bringing people that, live far off and are doing, bigger things, whether they're living in other countries or, influencing legislation in our country regarding the whole vaccine mandates or the COVID fraud. So we have a wide spectrum of people that we'll be bringing on. So that takes a lot of time and energy, and so if you want to support that, you can become a patron, and there's different ways that you can help that too.
Yeah, great. Or join Rokfin.
Or join Rokfin.
Okay. Well, thanks everybody. We'll see you next time.
Thanks for joining today.
Poll Quote. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye-bye.
Book of Hours are artists here to empower and embolden your response to the constant negative sound bites that attack your news and social media feeds. In order to continue making the video essays and art you've come to enjoy, we need your support. Make a one-time donation or become a patron. Thank you. Book of Hours are artists here to empower and embolden